Before the story starts, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
Everyone in the small town knew about the lake. It was a quiet, peaceful place, hidden behind tall trees and small houses. The water was always calm in the morning, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Birds would sing from the branches, and sometimes, deer came to drink from the edge. It was the perfect escape from the noise of the world. For years, Alex had loved that lake. Every weekend, Alex would wake up early, grab a cup of coffee, and walk down to the water. He loved the smell of fresh water and the sound of soft waves touching the shore. It was his little sanctuary. No phones, no work, no stress, just him and the lake. Alex's neighbors also loved the lake. Families came for picnics, children played on the banks, and fishermen would quietly cast their lines. It was the kind of place where people felt safe and free. Everyone respected it. No one tried to take it over or build anything on it. It felt like the lake belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. Every morning, Alex had a routine. He would sit on his favorite wooden bench, looking at the sun rising over the water. Sometimes he would bring his notebook and write down thoughts, stories, or little sketches of the lake. He loved watching the ducks swim, the fish jumping, and the occasional turtle crossing the pond. To Alex, every small detail was a miracle. But it wasn't just the scenery that made the lake special. It was the feeling of peace, the quiet that allowed him to think. Alex often said, "This lake keeps me sane." And it really did. He had tried other places, parks, rivers, even the beach, but nothing compared to the small, hidden lake behind his home. One Saturday morning, Alex arrived at the lake as usual. The sun was just peeking over the trees, painting the water in gold. He took a deep breath, enjoying the cool air. For a moment, everything felt perfect. He leaned back on the bench and closed his eyes, listening to the world wake up. But then, something felt different. Alex opened his eyes and looked around. The lake seemed off. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. But then he noticed something strange. There were stakes in the water, small wooden poles that had never been there before. And there were some markings on the ground near the shore, like someone had measured or planned something. Alex frowned. He walked closer to the water and touched one of the poles. It was solid, placed carefully in the shallow water. His heart began to race. "What is this?" he whispered. The lake that had always been calm and untouched now felt strange, almost like it didn't belong to him anymore. He looked around and saw more signs. There were fresh tracks on the soil, and a few tools left behind. It seemed like someone had started working here while no one was watching. Alex's stomach sank. He loved the lake, but he had no idea who would dare do something like this. The feeling of calm vanished. Alex felt a mix of anger and fear. He couldn't imagine anyone ruining this place, this peaceful lake he had loved for so long. He sat back on the bench, trying to think. Who would do this? And why? As he sat there, trying to calm down, a neighbor came walking down the path. Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who lived nearby, waved at Alex. She looked worried too. "Good morning, Alex," she said. "Have you noticed the lake?" Alex shook his head. "Yes, it's strange." "What is happening here?" Mrs. Thompson sighed. "I heard the HOA is planning something. They say they want to turn the lake into a restaurant." Alex froze. His mind refused to process the words. A restaurant? On the lake?" Mrs. Thompson nodded. "A floating restaurant. I don't know the details, but they want to build on the water. People are talking about it in the neighborhood." Alex felt his heart pounding. The peaceful lake, gone? Turned into a business? The thought was unbearable. He had imagined some changes over the years, maybe a small dock or a few benches, but never anything like this. The lake was not just water, it was life, memories, and peace. And now someone wanted to take it away. He walked along the shore, trying to see if any construction had started. There were small signs, some equipment, and faint marks in the soil. It looked like the work was just beginning, but it was enough to make Alex feel alarmed. Someone had already decided, without asking him or anyone else who loved the lake. Alex knew he had to do something. He couldn't just sit and watch his sanctuary disappear. But what could he do? He was just one person, and the HOA had power, rules, and money. It felt impossible. But he couldn't ignore it. Not now. As the sun climbed higher, Alex sat back on his bench. He looked at the water, reflecting the sky like it always did. But this time, the reflection seemed strange, almost like it was warning him. The lake, his peaceful lake, was under threat. And Alex realized that the quiet mornings, the calm waves, and the gentle birdsong might not last for much longer. For the first time, Alex felt a surge of determination. He loved this lake too much to let it go. He didn't know how, but he would find a way to fight. And deep down, he knew that the battle for the lake was only beginning. As he left the shore that morning, Alex looked back at the water. It was calm, beautiful, and peaceful, just like always. But the stakes in the water, the markings, and the faint sound of machinery far away told a different story. The lake was no longer just a place to relax, it was a battlefield. And Alex was ready to defend it. The peaceful lake that everyone loved was about to change forever. And Alex had no idea how wild and unexpected this fight would become. Alex didn't sleep well that night. The peaceful lake he had loved for years was no longer the same in his mind. Sleep kept slipping away, replaced by images of wooden stakes in the water, strange markings on the shore, and the words Mrs. Thompson had whispered, "They want to turn the lake into a restaurant." When he woke up, Alex felt a strange mix of fear and determination. He needed answers. Something was happening at the lake, and he couldn't wait for the HOA to decide what to do. He grabbed his jacket, his notebook, and a small flashlight, even though the sun had barely risen. Today, he had to see for himself. The morning was unusually quiet. No birds sang, no wind rustled the leaves. It felt like the world was holding its breath. As Alex walked toward the lake, he noticed something strange. A thin layer of fog floated over the water. The fog made the stakes and equipment look eerie, like shadows rising from the lake itself. He quickened his pace. The closer he got, the more he realized that this wasn't just small construction, it was a full plan in motion. Wooden platforms floated in the middle of the lake, anchored by ropes. A small crane stood near the shore, its arms swinging slightly in the wind. Someone had already started turning the calm water into a construction site. Alex felt his stomach twist. How could they do this without telling anyone? He whispered to himself. He crouched near the shore and examined the wooden platforms. The wood was freshly cut, smooth and polished, ready for the restaurant structure. Signs of work were everywhere, footprints in the mud, scattered nails, and even a few boards left behind. But what shocked Alex the most was a large, bright sign near the water. "Coming soon, Lakeview Floating Restaurant, open to all." The words felt like a punch in the chest. Open to all? They didn't even ask the people who lived here. They didn't care about the families, the children playing, or the quiet mornings spent fishing. The lake was supposed to be a sanctuary, and now it was turning into a spectacle for strangers. Alex felt anger rising in his chest. He wanted to tear the sign down, to scream at whoever did this. But he held back. He needed a plan. He couldn't fight blindly. He had to understand what the HOA was doing before acting. He started walking along the edge of the lake, trying to see if anyone was around. That's when he noticed something even stranger. The water near the middle of the lake looked different. There were strange machines floating, moving slowly but purposefully. They seemed to be adjusting the platforms, pushing them into place. Alex had never seen anything like this. It looked almost alive, like the lake itself was being reshaped against its will. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the far side of the lake. Alex froze. A man in a reflective vest appeared, carrying a clipboard. He was speaking into a walkie-talkie, pointing at the floating platforms. Alex ducked behind a tree, heart pounding. He didn't want to be noticed, but he needed to know who this was and what they were planning. The man spoke clearly, almost arrogantly. "Make sure the platforms are level. We start serving by next month. The HOA wants everything perfect." Alex's eyes widened. Serving? Next month? They were moving fast. This wasn't just a plan, they had a schedule. And no one had asked the people who actually loved the lake. Alex took a step back, thinking, if they moved this quickly, the lake would be gone before anyone could stop them. He needed allies. He needed information. And he needed a plan. He waited a few minutes, watching the workers from behind the trees. Every action they took, every nail they hammered, made Alex feel more determined. He had spent years enjoying this lake, and he couldn't let it be taken away so easily. Finally, he turned and walked back home, but his mind was racing. The peaceful lake, the quiet mornings, the reflection of the sky on calm water, it was all at risk. And the HOA didn't even see it. To them, it was just a place to make money, a project to complete. To Alex, it was life. He knew one thing, he couldn't wait any longer. He had to act. The discovery that morning had changed everything. The lake wasn't just a place to relax, it was under threat. And Alex realized that standing by quietly would mean losing it forever. As he reached his doorstep, he took one last look at the foggy water in the distance. The wooden platforms floated silently, like dark islands in the mist. The calm was gone, replaced by tension. And in that moment, Alex made a promise to himself, he would do whatever it took to protect the lake. No matter the obstacles, no matter the risks. The peaceful lake was gone. The battle for its soul was about to begin. Alex woke up that morning with a strange mix of fear and determination. He had seen the stakes, the platforms, and the machines floating on his beloved lake. But what unsettled him most was the realization, the HOA didn't care. To them, the lake was just another project, another place to make money. To Alex, it was everything. He brewed a strong cup of coffee and stared out of his window. The fog still clung to the lake, hiding the work, but he knew it was there. He felt a surge of anger. Enough was enough. It was time to confront them. Alex walked to the HOA office that morning, clutching a notebook filled with observations, photos he had secretly taken, and questions he wanted answers to. The building looked normal, almost boring, like any other office in town. But Alex knew that inside, decisions were being made that could destroy his peaceful lake forever. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The receptionist looked up, smiling politely. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I need to speak to someone about the lake," Alex said firmly. "It's urgent." After a few minutes, a middle-aged woman appeared. She introduced herself as Ms. Harwood, HOA manager. Her tone was calm but firm. "How can I help you?" she asked, though Alex could tell she was already annoyed. Alex tried to stay calm, but his frustration leaked out. "I've seen what you're doing to the lake. You can't just turn it into a floating restaurant. It's a private community, and people love this place. You didn't ask anyone." Ms. Harwood's eyes narrowed slightly. She took a deep breath and replied, "Mr. Alex, the HOA has full authority over community projects. We follow the rules. And this project benefits everyone. People will enjoy a restaurant on the lake. It's good for the community." Alex's frustration boiled over. Good for the community? How is destroying this lake good? People come here for peace, for nature. Not to eat overpriced food while looking at dead platforms floating in the water. Ms. Harwood raised an eyebrow. "You're exaggerating. We are simply improving amenities." Alex felt a wave of helplessness. They wouldn't listen. They were calm, formal, and completely unbothered by the destruction. And yet, he couldn't walk away. Not now. He left the office with more determination than ever. The lake was under threat, and the HOA was moving fast. He needed a plan. But before he could act, he realized he wasn't alone in his anger. Walking back toward the lake, Alex ran into two neighbors, Mr. Patel and Lisa, who were also watching the strange construction. Their faces mirrored his worry. "They didn't even notify anyone," Lisa said. "I came here this morning and saw the floating platforms. It's insane." "We need to do something," Mr. Patel added. I tried talking to the HOA yesterday. They won't listen. They think this is all perfectly fine. Alex nodded. We can't fight them alone. But together, maybe we have a chance. The three of them started discussing ideas, small actions they could take to slow down the construction. They talked about posting notices, contacting local authorities, and even going online to gather support from the community. Every idea seemed tiny, but it was a start. By the afternoon, Alex returned to the lake. He needed to see the work again, to understand what he was up against. The fog had lifted, revealing more platforms in the water. Workers were busy measuring, hammering, and moving equipment. Everything was organized, professional, and intimidating. Alex crouched behind a tree and watched. His heart pounded. He knew this was only the beginning. The HOA had power, experience, and resources. But he had passion, community support, and a deep love for the lake. Suddenly, a worker noticed him. "Hey! What are you doing there?" he shouted. Alex froze. For a moment, panic took over. But then he remembered why he was there. He stepped forward and raised his hands. "I'm just a concerned neighbor," he said. "This lake belongs to everyone. Please stop construction until the community is informed." The worker frowned and walked back to the platforms. Alex realized that confrontation alone wouldn't work. Words weren't enough. He needed something more clever, more strategic. That night, Alex sat at his desk, staring at the lake from his window. The wooden platforms floated silently, like islands ready to consume everything he loved. He knew the HOA would not stop unless they had a reason. And he was determined to give them one. The battle had begun. Alex didn't know how it would end, but he made a promise to himself: the lake would not be destroyed without a fight. And in the quiet of the night, he started drafting a plan that was risky, creative, and bold. Because sometimes, fighting for what you love means standing up against power, against rules, and even against fear itself. And Alex was ready. Alex couldn't sleep that night. The image of the lake, his lake, filled with floating platforms, haunted him. He knew that confronting the HOA directly hadn't worked. They were calm, organized, and completely sure of their power. Alex realized something important: he couldn't fight this battle alone. He needed allies. The next morning, he grabbed his notebook and a few photos of the construction. He started by knocking on doors, speaking to neighbors he hadn't talked to in years. Some were surprised, some were skeptical, but most had noticed the changes in the lake and were just waiting for someone to act. His first stop was Mr. Patel, who had already expressed concern the day before. When Alex showed him the photos, Mr. Patel's eyes widened. This is worse than I thought," he said. "We can't just sit and watch." Together, they decided to speak to Lisa, a young woman who had lived near the lake all her life. She had a network of friends in the neighborhood and even knew a few local reporters. Lisa agreed immediately: "If we can organize everyone, they won't be able to ignore us. This is our home." For the first time, Alex felt hope. They started planning, small meetings at neighbors' homes, sharing photos and updates, and gathering signatures to show the HOA that the community was against the project. But it wasn't easy. Some neighbors were afraid. "The HOA has money, lawyers, you can't fight that," one man warned. Another complained, "Why make trouble? It's just a restaurant." Alex listened but didn't argue. He knew fear and apathy were the HOA's strongest allies. If they could be won over, the tide could turn. The group started thinking creatively. They realized the HOA had made a big mistake. They assumed the community wouldn't care. Alex and his allies decided to turn that mistake into their advantage. They started posting updates on social media, sharing photos of the lake and the floating platforms. They wrote short, emotional posts about why the lake mattered not just to them, but to everyone who had ever visited. Soon, the posts began to spread. People from nearby towns started commenting, expressing support, and even offering advice. Alex felt a spark of excitement. The lake wasn't just his anymore, it was everyone's. The HOA couldn't ignore a growing wave of attention. While organizing allies, Alex also learned something surprising. Some HOA members were secretly unsure about the restaurant too, they just hadn't spoken up. Alex reached out to them quietly, sharing concerns about community backlash. Slowly, cracks appeared in the HOA's unity. Then came the first small victory. One of the workers accidentally left some equipment unattended at the lake. Lisa and Mr. Patel quickly documented it and sent photos to local authorities, highlighting potential safety violations. Within hours, the HOA received an official warning. It was a tiny win, but it felt enormous. Alex and his allies cheered quietly in his living room. For the first time, it felt like the battle could be won not by force, but by careful, smart action. As the sun began to set, Alex returned to the lake. The floating platforms were still there, but now, with the community watching and growing pressure, the energy felt different. It wasn't just him against the HOA anymore. It was all of them. Alex looked at the water, thinking. The battle was just beginning, but the tide had turned slightly in their favor. The lake still had a chance. And Alex realized something important: power wasn't just about money or rules. It was about people, courage, and the willingness to act when others stayed silent. That night, as he sat by his window looking at the foggy, quiet water, Alex felt something he hadn't felt in days: hope. The battle for the lake was far from over, but with allies by his side, he knew it was no longer impossible. The peaceful lake was still under threat, yes. But now, the fight had grown. And Alex was ready for the next step. Alex couldn't stop thinking about the lake. Every calm ripple, every bird landing on the water, haunted him. He knew the HOA wouldn't stop unless forced. But Alex was done waiting. It was time to act and not just react. He needed a plan. He gathered his allies Lisa, Mr. Patel, and a few others who had joined the cause. They sat around a small kitchen table, papers, photos, and laptops scattered everywhere. Maps of the lake, pictures of platforms, and notes on HOA rules covered the surface. Alex leaned forward, eyes sharp. "We can't fight them head on," he said. "We need to be smart. If we use their rules, their schedule, even their own mistakes against them, we can win." The group nodded, tense but excited. Alex outlined the first step: document everything. They would record every piece of construction, take videos, and photograph safety violations. Every missing permit, every abandoned tool, every small misstep could become leverage. Next, they decided to organize public attention. They planned a community lake day, inviting neighbors and reporters to visit the lake, share stories, and post photos online. The idea was simple: make the lake's beauty and importance undeniable. Make it impossible for the HOA to ignore. But Alex saved the boldest step for last. He wanted to create a small, harmless disruption that would halt construction temporarily. Something clever, legal, and safe, but shocking enough to grab attention. He smiled slightly, knowing it would work. "We're going to make them pause," he said. "And when they pause, we strike with our allies, our evidence, and the community. Timing is everything." The group spent hours refining the plan. Each member had a role. Lisa would coordinate the social media posts. Mr. Patel would monitor construction schedules. Alex would handle direct contact with local authorities and document every interaction. By evening, the plan was ready. Alex walked to the lake alone, watching the floating platforms under the fading sunlight. The water shimmered gold, peaceful yet tense. Tomorrow, everything would begin. The lake, his sanctuary, was about to become the center of a battle that could decide its fate. That night, Alex barely slept. He imagined the HOA's reaction, the news spreading, and the small victories stacking up. He knew risks were high. One wrong move, and the HOA could retaliate. But for the first time, he felt powerful not because of money or rules, but because he had a plan, and allies who cared. The next morning, Alex and his team executed step 1. They documented construction in detail: videos of workers moving platforms, photos of unfinished sections, even timestamps of machinery use. Every piece of evidence was carefully stored. Step 2 began with a surprise: the lake day. Families, neighbors, and a few curious visitors showed up. Children laughed near the shore, birds flew overhead, and cameras captured the lake's untouched beauty. Local reporters snapped pictures, posted stories online, and began asking questions about the HOA's project. Alex watched quietly, heart pounding. This was working. The HOA couldn't ignore it, not now. Finally, the bold step. Alex and his allies highlighted a safety concern: one floating platform was unstable and posed a risk. They reported it officially, forcing the HOA to halt work until inspectors arrived. It was a small move, but it gave Alex time, the perfect window to rally even more support. As the sun set, Alex stood by the lake. The water reflected the sky, calm yet alive. The platforms floated silently, but now they felt vulnerable, not invincible. Alex smiled slightly. The plan was working. The battle wasn't over, but the first steps had been taken. And Alex realized something important: sometimes, the smartest fight isn't the loudest. Sometimes, it's the one that moves quietly, steadily, and cleverly, just like the ripples on a lake. Tomorrow would bring the next stage of the battle. And Alex was ready. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of water and mud. Alex stood at the edge of the lake, heart pounding. The floating platforms glistened in the sunlight, calm and silent, but he knew they were a battlefield waiting to explode. Today was the day he would face the HOA directly. He had prepared for weeks, documented construction mistakes, gathered neighbors, involved reporters, and alerted local authorities. But nothing could fully prepare him for the tension he felt now. The calm of the lake contrasted sharply with the storm of nerves inside him. As he approached the floating platforms, a small group of HOA officials stood near the shore. Ms. Harwood, the HOA manager, was there, clipboard in hand, looking as calm and collected as ever. But Alex noticed something different. For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed her face. "Alex," she called, her tone polite but firm, "you shouldn't be here. This is private property. I suggest you leave before we take action." Alex squared his shoulders. "No, Ms. Harwood. This lake belongs to the community. Your construction is illegal in many ways, unsafe in others, and it destroys the natural beauty. I won't leave until this is addressed." The officials exchanged glances. Alex could feel the tension thickening. They weren't used to someone standing up to them so boldly, with evidence in hand and support from neighbors and reporters. Suddenly, the first witnesses arrived: neighbors, local journalists, and even a few curious visitors. Cameras flashed, phones recorded videos, and murmurs filled the air. The HOA officials stiffened. They hadn't expected this. Alex held up his notebook, showing detailed photos of unsafe platforms, broken measurements, and construction without proper permits. "These aren't just my concerns," he said. "These are violations that must be addressed. And the community is watching." Ms. Harwood's calm facade cracked slightly. You've organized people, gathered media. This isn't a simple protest." Alex's ally stepped forward. Lisa held a stack of signed petitions. Mr. Patel spoke up. "We want this lake preserved. We are not asking. We are demanding proper action, and you must stop construction until rules are followed." A tense silence fell. The HOA officials muttered among themselves. Alex noticed some younger employees fidgeting, uncertain about how to respond to a growing, united community. Then came the unexpected twist. A local inspector arrived, summoned earlier by Alex. The inspector examined the platforms, the floating structures, and the permits. After a few tense minutes, he turned to the HOA officials. "Construction is halted immediately," he said. "Safety violations and permit issues must be resolved before any work continues." Alex exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The platforms, which had felt unstoppable just hours ago, were now frozen in place. The lake, for now, was safe. But the showdown wasn't over. Ms. Harwood stepped forward, her tone sharper now. "You may have delayed us today, Alex, but the HOA has plans. This isn't finished." Alex met her gaze evenly. "Then we'll be ready." And we won't stop until the lake is safe for everyone, not just your project. As the officials retreated, the community erupted quietly in victory. Neighbors clapped, reporters asked questions, and Alex felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The lake was still calm, but it was no longer a silent witness. It had become a symbol of courage, unity, and resistance. That night, Alex stood by the shore, looking at the floating platforms frozen in the water. The battle had been won, but the war might continue. Still, he felt a sense of power he hadn't known before. Standing up for what mattered, gathering allies, and acting with courage, it worked. And in the quiet of the lake, under the golden glow of the setting sun, Alex realized something important. Sometimes, the strongest battles aren't about fighting hard, they're about fighting smart, together, and without fear. The showdown had tested him, pushed him to his limits, and revealed unexpected allies. And the lake, once peaceful and silent, now held a story of courage that no construction could erase. The lake was quiet again, but this quiet felt different. It wasn't the calm before a storm, it was the calm after a battle. The floating platforms remained frozen in the water, halted by legal orders and community pressure. For the first time in weeks, Alex allowed himself to breathe fully, watching the ripples shimmer in the evening sunlight. It had been a long journey. From the shocking discovery of construction, through confrontations with the HOA, organizing allies, and executing clever strategies, Alex had fought not just for a piece of water, but for a memory, a sanctuary, and a community. Every moment had tested him, his patience, courage, and creativity, but the lake had survived. Neighbors gathered at the shore that evening. Children ran along the banks, laughing. Families spread picnic blankets, and friends waved at one another. Cameras flashed, capturing the celebration. Alex stood quietly at the edge, watching the scene unfold. For years, he had loved the lake alone, but now he realized that its beauty and peace belonged to everyone, and everyone had a part in saving it. Lisa approached him with a smile. "You did it, Alex." "We did it," she said. Alex shook his head, smiling faintly. "No. The lake did it. We just reminded everyone what it means to us." Mr. Patel nodded. "You turned fear into action. You showed people that even one voice can make a difference if it's brave enough." Alex felt a strange warmth in his chest. He realized that the fight had changed him, and not just him, everyone around him. The lake was the same, yet it felt new. Every ripple, every reflection, every bird landing on the water seemed to carry the story of their struggle, their courage, and their unity. That night, Alex sat by his favorite bench, looking at the stars reflected in the water. The lake was peaceful again, but this time, it wasn't just a quiet retreat. It was a symbol. A reminder that standing up for what you love matters, that courage can ripple outward, touching more lives than you imagine. He thought of the HOA and Ms. Harwood, who would try again, no doubt. But Alex no longer felt fear. He had learned that preparation, unity, and smart action could challenge even the strongest opponents. The lake was safe, for now, and even if the battle returned, he was ready. Alex whispered softly to himself, almost as if the lake could hear him, "We did it. We protected you. And we will always protect you." As he walked back home, the moonlight glimmered on the water. The platforms floated silently, but they no longer felt threatening. They were frozen symbols of a battle fought wisely, a fight that showed the power of courage, community, and determination. The peaceful lake, once threatened by construction, was now alive with stories, laughter, and hope. And Alex knew that no matter what happened next, the spirit of the lake, the quiet strength that it always carried, would endure. Victory wasn't just winning against the HOA. It was proving that one person, with determination, allies, and a clever plan, could protect what mattered most. And that message, like the gentle ripples of the lake, would reach far beyond its shores. For the first time in weeks, Alex smiled fully, letting the cool night air and calm waters wash over him. The battle was over, but the story of courage, hope, and the love for the lake would live on forever.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it.